Follow the buzzer. Rest in peace. Woo! The best there is, the best there was, and the best ever will be. What you gonna do, brother? Hey, yo.
Can you see me now?
Strategy my Oklahoma ass.
Life sucks, and then you die.
Welcome to the JM Report. I'm your host, IAmGoodOlJM, and this is episode 62 as I adjust my volume setting here. There we go. Coming to you from CSP Studios in Tampa, Florida, the birthplace of pro wrestling. And, well, personally, just last night, I attended the, what do they call it? The fan opening event or opening fan event or whatever at AMC Theaters, usually for early screenings of movies. And unless I notice a pattern here, unless you watch a particular movie in IMAX, there usually be like an exclusive item or piece of merchandise, whether it be a coin or a poster. Last year, for example, for Ocean's 8, they gave out a notepad and a pen. It's basically a prop, but basically the pen was chrome, but pinkish chrome with a nice little diamond on top, and it had the movie logo on the notepad with AMC, of course, and I think the Warner Brothers logo somewhere. But last night it was for Dark Phoenix or X-Men Dark Phoenix. Gave out this keychain. Not bad. It's something. I mean, 9 out of 10 times, I didn't even realize that it's that kind of promotion. And I completely forgot about this one as far as them giving an item out or a gift. So I said, okay, nothing huge. Here's a keychain. It's a circular keychain with the X of the X-Men logo on one side, and then the other is Dark Phoenix and IMAX. And I think that's it on the other side. But the movie itself, no spoilers, but I did not enjoy it. For so many reasons, I did not enjoy it. And that's as much as I'll say. It's very disappointing, especially being the last of the X-Men movies under Fox's umbrella before they were bought out by Disney. And more so disappointing because I think it was the last trailer, I believe, of this movie that came out a couple of weeks ago, and they were hyping up the ending, the most surprising ending, or unexpected ending, or some crap like that. And I'm watching it, I'm like, seriously, this is it? This? Well, I put up on my Facebook.com/GoodOlJM page that I would eventually, but thinking that it's opening weekend and allowing others to get their own opinion about it. But eventually, I'm going to have a rant about this. So be on the lookout for that, as listed in the subscription down below. You can follow me on Facebook.com/GoodOlJM. And before this thing turns into a movie review again, let's get down to business. Today, or in a couple hours, matter of fact, by my time, it's WWE Super Show Down. Now, apparently, there were some additions and possibly a takeaway. As of last night, and this was not mentioned on Smackdown despite having about 3 minutes left of airtime, The 50-man over-the-top rope battle royal just might be removed, or they just chose not to advertise it on SmackDown for reasons. However, I checked again last night because throughout the day, as I was running errands, I heard, there was a match added to the card. Okay. By the time I got home, I went to their website, checked out the previews, and it's just a tag team match between the Usos and Revival. But what I also found interesting that on the preview itself, at least on the website, there's no mention of the 50-man battle royal. I'm not going to do any predictions here because this is a bona fide house show, a very expensive one at that. Or a glorified house show, I should say. Mixing of the two brands. And if it's true that the battle royal has been removed, what a disappointment. In a sense where, okay, first of all, where the hell are you going to get these 50 guys? And I hate when they reuse guys that were just out there. Like similar to some Royal Rumbles, they had a match early on and then they come back out during the Royal Rumble match itself. Like Mick Foley came out 3 times. But for 50 guys, like many, I was imagining that, okay, I'm assuming they're going to pull guys from not only Raw and SmackDown, but NXT UK, 205 Live, obviously. Maybe I believe they already opened up their performance center in the UK. I don't remember the status of the one in India. Well, point being, having closer performance centers to parts unknown, they could have pulled talent from there as well, just to give them an opportunity to shine. But that's neither here or there. And so unless certain individuals are going to have different types of attire, I heard this was weeks ago, but I heard a story that Aleister Black will not be attending the show because he has tattoos, specific ones at that will not be allowed in the parts unknown country. Okay, tattoos in general, I call bullshit there because Braun Strowman was there last year winning the greatest Royal Rumble. He has tattoos. Nothing specific, but just tattoos in general. Randy Orton has sleeve tattoos. Baron Corbin, even though he does wrestle with a shirt on, but he has tattoos. Kofi Kingston. Roman Reigns. Bobby Lashley. Lucha House Party. The Usos have sleeve tattoos. So you can dismiss that bullshit rumor about Aleister Black. Not to mention, if the idea was that Aleister Black has a specific back tattoo of a demon-looking character, then you probably wouldn't be promoting one of your matches as the Demon Finn Balor defending the Intercontinental title. I mean, sounds bullshit to me as well. So the rest of the card goes like this. Triple H, one-on-one with Randy Orton. By the way, no particular order here. For the Universal Championship, Seth Rollins defends against Baron Corbin, keeping in mind that at some point, Brock Lesnar plans to cash in. He said, Friday, which I'll get into in a moment. So, Beast be damned, cashing in tonight. For the WWE Championship, Kofi Kingston defends against Dolph Ziggler. As mentioned, Intercontinental Champion, the Demon Finn Balor takes on Andrade. Roman Reigns one-on-one with Shane McMahon. Braun Strowman versus Bobby Lashley. In a 3-on-1 handicap match, the Lucha House Party goes against Lars Sullivan. This will be Sullivan's first televised match ever since jumping from NXT to the main roster. And yes, I'm aware that he's had a few house show matches, but other than some social media coverage, no televised match from Lars. And as I mentioned before, the added match, as recent as maybe this past Wednesday, the Usos teaming up together to take on the Revival. So whatever beef they squashed during the Memorial Day weekend is over as they take their feud around the world. And curious to see how the audience here is going to well, and generally speaking, I'm curious to see how the live audience is going to give out their receptions for both heels and baby faces. I believe they're up to date with storylines and are aware of what's happening. I would imagine they know who are the faces and who are the bad guys. Last year, warm receptions. Better so in the second show that they had. For the greatest Royal Rumble, I think there was more of testing grounds as well, even though the deal was already in play for the next 10 years at that time. But lackluster, for lack of a better term, as far as crowd reactions before their first show. But anyway, we'll see how things play out this time around. So, Monday Night Raw. It got a bit of a ratings jump for good reasons, but unfortunately, it didn't pay off. So, as I mentioned last week, the previous weekend, Stephanie McMahon was basically warning Brock Lesnar about how he disrespected the concept of the Money in the Bank contract, disrespecting the champions and the audience, because it was advertised and billed as Lesnar's going to choose which champion he will cash in on. He never did. So in response, Paul Heyman said, okay, Stephanie, Brock will cash in, not choose, but cash in this Monday Night on Raw, which was this week. And, I mean, obviously he didn't, so whatever bullshit consequences are going to come, never did. But who cares? They got their rating number to go up a little bit. And I guess that's more enough punishment for us for once again being lied to 2 weeks in a row. And for those who don't know or just refuse to accept it, Brock Lesnar is not going to wrestle on Monday Night Raw. He might do what he did this week and previous times, do a run-in, do an assault, an attack. But that's not a match. Unless the bell rings to start the match and the bell rings to end it. But Lesnar, the last time I believe he teased to have a match on Raw, it's about maybe 5 years ago. He was going to wrestle either Batista, which would have been the first, at least on WWE TV, or I believe it was Randy Orton. At the time, this was right before WrestleMania 30, and Lesnar wanted to be in a title picture, and then I went into the Royal Rumble, would challenge either man for a shot at the championship, but he ended up taking on The Undertaker and ending the streak there. But no, and Heyman said it several times. He hasn't said it recently, but he has said it on many occasions in the past. Lesnar does not wrestle for free on Monday Night Raw, which is just another way of saying, like, he wasn't paid to wrestle. He was just paid to make an appearance on top of what he was already getting in his contract. So either that concept has fallen on deaf ears on a lot of the fans, but again, or just being complete denial, like, no, he's going to wrestle. He's not. Why do you think he's never been on Smackdown for the past, which feels like forever? I'll say over 10 years, without exaggerating. After his initial run, after dropping the title to Eddie Guerrero back in 2002, he leaves, comes back nearly 10 years later. He's 2012. Yeah, almost 10 years later, 2012, feuding with Cena. That was on Raw. Never appeared back on SmackDown. So we're talking more than 15 years now that Lesnar has not appeared on SmackDown and not wrestled a match. But there's more to it on this show. But Raw opens up with Roman Reigns coming down the aisle as the commentators had no... I thought this was hilarious. The commentators, usually where they stand up and have their backs towards the ring, talking to the cameraman, they had no lighting. I thought it was hilarious. Yes, from now on, keep it like this for the rest of the shows to come on Raw. They don't need to be on TV as much as they are. So Roman Reigns comes down. He was going to be a part of a 6-man tag team match, teaming up with the Usos, taking on the Revival and Drew McIntyre. However, Shane McMahon appears on stage discussing their match at Parts Unknown as Roman Reigns has a rebuttal, mentioning that Shane cannot beat Roman without any help from his friends, especially Drew McIntyre, who happens to show up at this time, teasing he was about to head to the ring. But from behind, Roman Reigns gets jumped in the ring, and it's a 3-on-1 assault until the Usos run down, make the save, thus officially beginning the match. Pretty standard stuff for a 6-man tag team, but towards the end, it was McIntyre who got the win over Jey Uso, receiving a Claymore kick, as everyone else was incapacitated, as they say, outside of the ring. Complete chaos, and of course there's a Shane McMahon interference here. But after the match, once again, Roman Reigns fell victim to a triple-man beatdown and turned into a 4-man beatdown, with Shane delivering his own version of a spear, obviously stacking the deck against Roman Reigns for later on tonight at Super Showdown. The Miz on the air with Miz TV, with Universal Champion Seth Rollins, as they two just chatted for a little bit. It's almost as if they were stalling, because up to this point, there were cameras set in the back of the building awaiting the arrival of Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman. It's funny that there was already an ambulance parked on the rampway. Anyway, so during the Miz TV segment, Brock arrives, comes out of the SUV, briefcase in tow. He walks in the back of the arena, and he comes to literally a fork in the road. To the right is the gorilla position, and to the left will be the locker room area. Lesnar literally hits the brakes and takes 2 steps back. Opposites attract. And decides not to head to the ring to cash in just yet, as he heads towards the locker rooms. This is all shown on the Jumbotron or the Titantron, and Seth Rollins showing his frustration, as once again Brock is playing mind games. Next match of the night, the Lucha House Party was going to have a match. Instead, we are greeted with their opponent at Super Showdown, Lars Sullivan, heading to the ring. And we get a bit of a preview for Friday after the triple team attempt on the House Party. Sullivan regained control, only to have the House Party deliver a triple drop kick and sending the big man outside of the ring as he decided to retreat. So there's a lot of, at least with me, my opinion, they're doing a great job here in hyping up Lars Sullivan. And yes, I know he's against Lucha House Party, but at this time, before he gets into an actual feud with a bigger name, not to mention that this gives the House Party a lot of TV time, and it's a good test. You have a big powerhouse like Sullivan, 3 luchadors that can fly around and run tracks around Sullivan like there's no tomorrow. So it's speed versus power. Also, aerial maneuvers by the House Party. Not to mention, it'll show how dominant Sullivan can be. So unless they're going to pull some kind of a spot later tonight where Sullivan picks up all 3 men over his shoulders or something like that, which would be very impressive. All 3 men combined weight, about 500 pounds, if I'm being nice enough about it. Still impressive. Anyone listening can try to pull that off without breaking a sweat. And for the record, no, I can't. So there's that. We go backstage, and the Iconics, the women tag team champions, interacting with Nikki Cross and Alexa Bliss. Now, Alexa Bliss, as far as we know, has not been medically cleared, as there hasn't been any reports made publicly anyway, and no one else has chimed in on it, but not since the Royal Rumble. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, I think the Royal Rumble was the last pay-per-view match. She's had a couple of them on Raw, most recently with Naomi, and that was just a cluster within itself. And it was only after that was it decided that Alexa needs more time off, her concussion or whatnot. And all of a sudden, just the past couple of weeks, just seemingly slides back into matches. Granted, being tag team matches, but she was still in there bumping around and also making an appearance on Smackdown, which I'll get to later. And I'm assuming she's good to go. As once again, Nikki Cross is thanking Alexa Bliss for being her only friend and the only one that actually listens to her. Not realizing that she's being manipulated, but nonetheless, Nikki Cross is very thankful. Raw Women's Champion Becky Lynch heads to the ring and cuts a promo on Lacey Evans. This brings out Lacey Evans and makes sure that Becky does not confuse her with the other blonde Charlotte Flair. I thought that was a nice little jab there. Of course, this brings out Charlotte Flair herself. So at this point, I want to mention that it's 9 p.m. by the time Charlotte Flair appeared. We've had only one match, almost a second one, but that was scrapped because of the Sullivan Lucha House Party stuff. So then the promo turns of Flair and Lacey Evans exchanging insults. They get into each other's faces, and Lacey Evans throws what I believe was a elbow or forearm. I don't know. Cameras did not catch it right, at least not on a live portion of it. And we have an impromptu match. Heel versus heel. Charlotte Flair versus Lacey Evans, while Becky Lynch was ringside on looking. This match was not good. At times, it looked like Lacey Evans was just out of her game, out of her element, and Charlotte was trying to basically let her know about it. There were a couple of stiff-looking shots, stiff-looking kicks, even pulling of the hair, but Lacey hung in there, and all this led to Becky Lynch running in, just basically stopping this nonsense, sparing us the rest of this not-so-good match, causing a DQ after pulling Flair from underneath the ring, and runs into the ring, delivering the manhandle slam, which I compared it to a rock bottom, but more pump handle, rock bottom combination. I mean, I don't see why Becky has to lock her arms or hands in the crotch area of her opponent just to pick her up and slam her. I mean, you know, I get you're trying to be different and do something unique and innovative, but it just looks a little strange to me. And as JR would say, you know, just modify it. Just can't you just modify the rock bottom a little bit? Maybe add a twist or a turn there, or instead of just getting in position to deliver from a standing spot, maybe you want to run to take a few steps forward or a few steps back. There I go again. Opposites attracting. Stepping backwards in the rock bottom position and just deliver it full force moving forward. I mean, it's still the same, but again, that's different. Used different. How many times have we seen the variations of the stunner or the diamond cutter? Same maneuver, sure, but it's delivered differently. Either way, Becky Lynch stands tall, holding up her championship as Lacey Evans and Charlotte Flair were laid out. So we finally get to the part of the show that we were supposed to get last week, where Rey Mysterio surrenders the United States Championship due to injury. And as Mysterio was about to address the audience, here comes Samoa Joe, saying that you're not really surrendering the title because you're injured. You're surrendering the title because you cannot beat Samoa Joe. Rey even himself points this out, that yes, your shoulders were up. It wasn't a fair decision. He pointed it out a week ago during his physical therapy, getting needle shots into the shoulder. If you guys haven't seen that video yet, it's just painful to look at. So Rey agrees, and a lot of people thought Mysterio was just going to surrender the title, period, and we're going to get some kind of number one contenders match or something like that, or a little mini tournament or something. Nope. Mysterio literally hands the title back. Well, not literally. He lays it on the ring floor and says, "Yeah, Joe, it's your belt. Take it back. You're still the champion." But of course, not before Samoa Joe can slap on the Coquina Clutch, choking out Mysterio, and then grabs his United States Championship and leaves. So Rey's going to be out for a while, unfortunately, again. This is, I believe, his second injury since returning to the WWE. And if there weren't any talks before, I'm sure they're going on now about Rey Mysterio and his long-term run in the WWE. And before this, and not that I'm considering him injury prone, he's not. It's just unfortunate accidents. And someone out there, well, Ahmed Johnson had unfortunate accidents and they considered him injury prone and kicked him out. But yeah, I get that. Probably a different time, and I know that's a lame excuse, especially how much younger, the late 90s, how much younger Mysterio was, and even then taking risks. And his most common injury were his knees. But we're talking his shoulder here, which he even said that he received during the post-match at Money in the Bank, being dropped on his shoulder by Samoa Joe after 2 Uranagi slams. And it sucked. If you watch the replay, it really sucked. It did a lot of damage. To have even the slightest separation of the shoulder is more than enough. There's no timetable when Mysterio will return. And again, I'm sure a discussion will take place when that happens, when Mysterio returns, about, hey, can you go? Are there any more injuries? Should be a lot of concern here, especially Mysterio has been going, 30 years now? Doesn't sound like much, especially he started wrestling at 15, I believe, give or take. That's a long career. I'm not suggesting anything as far as retiring or hanging it up. No, far from that. Only Rey can decide that. If anything, I'll probably say something like, slow it down. You're already part of the roster. You have a contract with the company as a talent. So I think he's earned the right to be an attraction, like some other people are now, and only wrestle when he needs to. If we can get a match between Mysterio and Ricochet, for example, that'll be an attraction. 1 week on Raw or SmackDown, whatever the fucking wild card is doing. I think they wrestled before in Lucha Underground. Could be wrong. I didn't catch the last 2 seasons, unfortunately. But here's an opportunity for WWE to have that in their archives, if you will. One of the greatest matches of all time on Raw, something like that. Moving on, we had an advertised arm wrestling match between Braun Strowman and Bobby Lashley. Very simple stuff here. Lashley being the heel, complaining how sweaty Braun Strowman's hands are, so they get the chalk. Then there's a hand separation. Finally get the actual arm wrestling competition underway on the 3rd attempt. Strowman wins, but Lashley, of course, gets upset and just attacks Strowman with the table, with the chalk, with the bucket or pail, whatever it was, and attacking Strowman with it. And very impressively, it's been a while since we've seen how strong Lashley can really be, throwing Strowman over his shoulder and delivering his version of a power slam. That was really impressive. Only problem was, even though Strowman was blinded by the chalk, almost immediately got back on his feet, but by this time Lashley was already outside the ring heading up the rampway. I think, can you just sell it a little bit? Just a little bit? Because Strowman just gets right back up and starts rubbing his eyes, as if that was more important to sell rather than just receiving a power slam while you were blinded. Logic be damned. We are shown, I'll get into this as well later on, but we are shown a YouTube video that was streaming on YouTube. Well, that is still streaming on YouTube over the weekend, where Carmella and R-Truth are hanging out at a golf course, just relaxing, giving time for Truth to not get attacked for his 24/7 championship. But how wrong he was as he was sitting in the golf cart with Carmella. He is jumped from behind by Jinder Mahal in full wrestling gear. I mean, who walks around at a golf course in full wrestling gear? I guess Jinder Mahal does. And has his own referee. So after a bit of a beatdown here and there, Mahal covers him and wins the 24/7 championship. Carmella is upset and starts yelling at Mahal, basically distracting him, because from behind came R-Truth, rolls Mahal back up, gets the 3 count, wins back the 24/7 championship. Both Carmella and Truth jump in the golf cart and they just book it. I mean, I never seen a golf cart move that fast. There had to have been some kind of NOS or something underneath, but that thing just flew out of there, leaving Mahal all confused. So, yeah, they need to do more of this, and they sure as hell did. But I question the time and place to do it. And hopefully it appears that when they are in a specific location at a specific time of day or whatever, that it's all not only planned out ahead of time, obviously, but the delivery is giving the illusion that, holy crap, this happened during this, which it could have been kind of dangerous. Well, not kind of. It would have been completely dangerous, but thankfully nothing happened. So, again, I'll get into that a little bit later. So Nikki Cross with Alexa Bliss in her corner versus Payne Royce. Things got a little personal at one point when Alexa Bliss had her coffee delivered to ringside, and Royce just kicked off the coffee from the apron, and Alexa slipped on the coffee that was spilled on the floor, and Billie Kay came over shoving Alexa and was laughing because Alexa was wearing white pants, and now Alexa stained with the coffee, making it look like something else happened. So this obviously pisses off Alexa Bliss. You just don't mess with Alexa and her coffee. So Nikki Cross took advantage of this distraction and delivered a neck breaker to Payne Royce in the ring and got the win. But Alexa was a little bit of spitfire, getting some shots in on the Iconics, probably trying to prove a point that she can still go, but again, not cleared up. At this point, we're not sure that she's even cleared yet medically. So Rollins heads back to the ring, and he's there waiting for Brock Lesnar to show up. Like, this is it. He's not going to wait. I want you to cash in now. And as he's waiting, here comes Brock with his hoodie, his gloves, his whole ring attire, even his boombox shirt. So Lesnar heads down, holding the briefcase. Maybe, maybe not. He has a referee. He has Paul Heyman. And yes, I'm skipping the entire portion of Baron Corbin because there was just no point to that. Just talking shite back and forth and looking forward to that match at tonight, matter of fact, that Super Show Down. But as Corbin left, he delivers the end of days, and this gave Brock the opportunity to jump in the ring and attack Seth Rollins with the briefcase. A couple of suplexes here, more shots with the briefcase. They go outside. Lesnar delivers an F5. Back in the ring, more suplexes, more shots with the briefcase. And in between, you got Heyman, now, cash in now. And Lesnar says, no, not now. This whole time, the referee's on the outside. And just a brutal beatdown. At one point, it had to have been the briefcase that cut open Rollins' back up high in his shoulder area as he was bleeding. And then just laid waste to the guy with more chair shots. Yeah, so steel chair was introduced, and Lesnar looked like he was working on the railroads, spiking down poor little Rollins. And finally, Heyman screams out, Brock, cash in now. And his response, Brock, was Friday. Friday? Friday. So Stephanie supposedly spoke to her family and higher ups at WWE that in so many words, was going to force Lesnar to cash in this past week after what happened last week. We got no cash in. And as far as I know, there hasn't been any response from the McMahon clan as far as punishment goes or consequences. If anything, they can easily turn around and say, okay, he said he'll cash in Friday instead. Bullshit. He said he was going to cash in the week before, or at least choose a champion to cash in on for maybe a later date. He never did. He never chose the champion. Then again, he wasn't promising to cash in. He was just going to choose a champion. This week, he was going to be forced to cash in, specifically on Rollins, I guess. Oh, yes, because Heyman made that promise. Oh, he's coming down to Raw to cash in on Seth Rollins, the Universal Champion. But you won't know when and where. Apparently, we still don't. We don't know when and where during the show, that is. And we never found out. It was just a beatdown. So who's to say tonight it'll be another swerve where to get numbers, to get viewers, the only reason why it jumped this week, and watch it drop next week, because they didn't deliver. And whether Lesnar attempts to cash in tonight at Super Showdown, personally, I don't care. We all know what's going to happen. He's going to hold that title hostage again. Even though he has extra free time now because his MMA career is over, so you can't use that excuse anymore. He's retired from MMA, USC, whatever. Probably why he's been so active as of late on Raw, showing, I believe, three weeks in a row now. Twice in 1 week this week when he's on Raw and he's going to appear on Super Showdown. But we'll see. I personally don't have any high expectations on this, whether Lesnar wins it or not. Again, I don't care. The booking has been atrocious, especially on Raw. Whoever is the champion, I think things could have turned around before Roman Reigns got sick again. And maybe the title would have meant something. It means something now with Rollins. So at least he's out there every week. That was the plan with Roman, so to speak, but didn't happen. Of course, they drafted Roman Reigns to SmackDown, which made absolutely no fucking sense. But again, wild card be damned. I should have a T-shirt like that. Damn the wild card and damn the draft, or whatever the hell they want to call it. But none of it makes sense. Remember that ambulance that I mentioned earlier? Well, conveniently, it was used here for Rollins to be stretched out as Becky Lynch joined them in the back, and they just drove off to a hospital. Is the word or the term hospital trademarked and you can't say it on live TV because you got your own terminology for it? It's a hospital. Or the fact that, well, we don't offer health insurance, so we got to call it something else. Yeah, that is a jab at them. So it's time for the latest episode of the Firefly Funhouse, and we meet not Husky, but Huskus? I believe that was the name, Huskus the pig. I guess that was the representation, easy for me to say, of the old Bray Wyatt when he was Husky Harris. And now we have a gym time with Bray Wyatt. introducing the Wyatt Gym segment. And we get an obvious Vince McMahon puppet. I really like to know how this was cleared and gotten the okay from Vince, because this puppet had devil horns on his head, telling everyone to just get their stuff together, which has been suggested a story or of a story from Bray Wyatt that's what he was told by Vince himself many moons ago. And Bray Wyatt tells him to hold off and breaks out into an 80s dance filled with 80s background graphics while simulating, or rather placing subliminal images of The Fiend, Bray Wyatt's new alter ego, in the creepy looking mask. And yeah, sure enough, Bray Wyatt, after removing his new Funhouse sweater gimmick, I guess, he's spawning a Wyatt Gym tank top, and yes, he looks in great physical condition here, flexing the big guns now. And that tank top is now available in their shop zone. This was great. I remember Bruce Pritchard, I believe the last week's episode of his Something to Wrestle, one of the questions asked was about Bray Wyatt and what to look forward to. And he says, well, stay tuned, folks. So I would imagine he's part of the production of that Firefly Funhouse. Jeez, feeling a little woozy here. But no, I did enjoy it. It's really hyping things up here, where to go, who Bray Wyatt's first angle is going to be with, his next feud. He's clearly over again with the fans. I wonder if they're ever going to have a episode with the Funhouse with mentioning the fact that he was a former WWE champion and use that. Obviously, he can't use the old cardboard cutout of himself, so maybe there'll be another puppet representing the previous incarnation of Bray Wyatt while he's holding the WWE title over the shoulder or around the waist or what have you. But interesting. It will be very interesting to see if they go that direction. But either way, I like what they're doing with Bray Wyatt here. We get a face-to-face between Triple H and Randy Orton, really just filling in time considering how the show ended. Going back and forth, Triple H puts Orton over, being one of the best in recent time. And Orton's rebuttal was very entertaining. I think he couldn't help himself because of the line and the way he delivered it. Hunter, just do me a favor before we get to Super Showdown. Be sure to reach into Stephanie's purse to retrieve your balls. Randy Orton's reaction. Don't know if that was scripted. I know that idea gets thrown around a lot because simply the reaction. Are we supposed to be under the impression that Orton is the heel? I mean, he got a great ovation coming out here on Raw, and hasn't been seen on Smackdown much. And of course, we saw him on Money in the Bank, sure, but before and after that, not much of him. But his reaction, just giggling and laughing his ass off, almost like as if to say, "I can't believe I just said that." So Triple H gets back into the ring because he was leaving when Orton dropped that line, and it's like, well, because they're so massive, I can't carry them myself. But speaking of balls, it's not something that you wouldn't know anything about, Orton. And I'll see you at parts unknown. And Triple H doesn't do a mic drop. He just throws the microphone at Orton and kind of bounced off his shoulder there. But still, Orton was still laughing his ass off. And if it was improvised or off script there by Orton, either way, it worked. And we have their 50,000 whatever match between these two later on tonight at Super Showdown. The rubber match between Cesaro and Ricochet took place. Simply the best match of the night. A lot of back and forth here. High spots, high impact maneuvers. But at the end, Ricochet defeats Cesaro with a roll-up and gets attacked after the bell by Cesaro, unfortunately. And Cesaro steps out of the ring to look for a weapon as he's searching underneath. At first, he grabs a ladder, but then drops it back down, walks along the apron, and looks underneath the ring again and pulls out a table. And attached to said table is R-Truth, who's been hiding underneath apparently the entire night, avoiding the roster. And which had been one of the funniest segments that involved R-Truth was this one here. He's looking at Cesaro. Oh, hi. Yeah, funny meeting you here. Cesaro's just looking at him all confused, like, the hell are you doing here? And of course, word got out as the Raw roster, and some SmackDown guys were there too. They ran down the rampway. So Ricochet baseball slides and drop kicks Cesaro over the railing as the Raw roster runs around the ring. R-Truth avoids this by running into the ring. At the same time, Ricochet does a diving over the top rope, taking out most of the competitors, and then the rest of them just brawl it out. Meanwhile, back in the ring, Drake Maverick looked like he had his opportunity to win the championship from R-Truth, but he gets super kicked by Carmella. And then the chase was back on, escaping the rest of the roster. R-Truth was through the arena. Again, I thought what they're doing now with the 24/7 championship, they found a way. Like, okay, originally when it was introduced by Mick Foley a few weeks ago now, wasn't the best of receptions, but I think it's seemingly anyway, warming up to the audience, as long as they just don't overdo it, at least on Raw and SmackDown or anywhere else. I'm pretty sure something will happen during Super Showdown. Maybe that's why they canceled the 50-man Battle Royal. They want all 50 guys chasing R-Truth for this championship throughout the arena or the stadium. So at this point, we have 8 minutes left for Monday Night Raw. And we're still yet to see The Undertaker, who's been heavily advertised and promoted throughout the show, make his appearance. And I'm thinking, oh, Lord, and they were going to show it. They're not going to treat The Undertaker like a lot of roster members here, where he's seen, he makes his entrance off camera, essentially. So when we come back live, he's already in the ring. They'll never do something like that with The Undertaker. So we get the full entrance. We get the bong, get the slow walk, the lights come back up. Actually, they don't. They were more dimmed rather than coming back up enough so the Taker can speak. And he had a message for Goldberg, his opponent tonight, Super Showdown. And interesting, Undertaker telling Goldberg not to be the family man in parts unknown, that he wants the old Goldberg, the ass kicker, the one that takes no names. Be that guy. Otherwise, our first match will be your last. And that Goldberg, you're next. And they go off the air. They literally go off the air. But there was an exclusive video of Undertaker still speaking after Goldberg was mentioned that he was next. Just one line. One line. Goldberg will rest in peace. And we just see Taker making his exit. The entire exit. Wow. Really exclusive. Wonder how Taker took that news that he was cut off. Not able to get his last signature phrase in there about resting in peace. But he's a veteran. He's a pro. He's an expert. I'm sure he's aware that these things happen. And when it comes to telling stories, because he'll advocate for this, Undertaker, and he has before, not in shoot interviews, but I forgot who he was hanging out with. A couple of guys, I forgot their names now, unfortunately, but basically saying like, okay, you can have all the high flying and diving here and diving there and flips and all that, but as long as the story's being told, none of that doesn't mean anything. So with that said, I'm curious to see or hear at some point what Mr. Calloway will have to say about having all the time in the world basically for a 3-hour Raw show and it still seems like as if they don't have enough time to tell the entire story. They just drag it, making it dull, making it stale, and just uninteresting and not entertaining. For me, they got to find common ground with that. You got 3 hours. A lot of things can be simplified to maybe 5-10 minutes to say what you got to say or do what you got to do, because sometimes storytelling involves physicality. So you guys figure that out, because I really don't know how much more I can beat this to the ground, and it seems like I do that every week here. Well, over at Smackdown, we open up with Kofi Kingston, the WWE Champion, and Xavier Woods, once again reminding us of his 11-year struggle. You see what I mean? I mean, if it's not being dragged, it's being copied and repeated from the previous week. And yes, we're all aware at this point, Kofi, it took you 11 years to get where you are now. Of course, you always leave out the point that had Mustafa Ali not been injured the way he was, and you not taking his spot in the Elimination Chamber, who knows how things would have turned out with that title. I mean, for all we know, Daniel Bryan could still be the WWE Champion at the WrestleMania. Anyway, he mentioned, now this part I did enjoy, where Kingston talks about his recent trip back to Ghana, West Africa, his hometown, and I couldn't believe he said that he hasn't been back home for 23 years. That's insane. I don't think during that whole time period, especially in Kofi's 11 years with the company, I don't think they even had a tour. At least not part of that part of West Africa. They might have had African tours, but near his hometown, I don't think they've ever been close. But Kofi was able to go there as a goodwill ambassador for the company and met up with a lot of people, a lot of friends, family, a lot of officials, passing out a lot of replica championship belts. And it was a good feel moment for the guy, and that's what champions do when they're given that precious time to, like, you know what, take a film crew, go home, film it, and it will show just how much of a wide range Kofi Kingston as champion can be, especially starting off with going home. And they've done it before with many first-time champions like Eddie Guerrero, The Rock, even though he was heel at the time, even Brock Lesnar, his first DVD, Here Comes the Pain, when he was after he defeated The Rock at SummerSlam 2002, and he went home and basically showed us around his old small town. I mean, but everyone knew who he was, and very happy and proud to see that the hometown boy was their champion. So back to SmackDown. Kofi gets interrupted by Dolph Ziggler, once again reminding us, it should be me, it should be me. Oh, jeez, okay, enough. I swear. Okay, well, let me finish this. So apparently, on cue, Ziggler had a video package showing off the times he's won championships, the times he's cashed in Money in the Bank. In response, Kingston mentioned that Ziggler was right, especially when Ziggler won his first Intercontinental and United States Championship. It was Kofi that he defeated each time. And I completely forgot about the part of the U.S. title where Ziggler was defeated Kingston for it. I completely forgot about that one. But, yeah. And Kofi still admires and respects him. And then Kofi has a video package for Ziggler. Okay. Showing when Ziggler walked out of the company the last time he had the United States Championship. This was about 2 years ago. He surrenders the title, leaves it in the middle of the ring, and walks out. Now, at the time, this is when Ziggler was having contractual issues with the company. Of course, things worked out. Ziggler was still able to have his comedy tour. I never chimed in to see any of that, but that's what he did. And Ziggler, he had another video package ready for Kingston, showing when he returned, Ziggler did, and performed a beatdown and damn near broke his head off with the steel chair around his neck a couple of weeks ago. So, is there any mind manipulations or reading people's minds here, where Kingston somehow knew Ziggler would come out to interfere his promo, show off one video package, only for Kingston to have a video package of his own, and only for Ziggler to realize, well, there's a good chance Kingston might reply with a video package, so I better have another video package just in case. And all on cue with a snap of a finger. And they all played on the Titantrons. Man, you just can't. Actually, they did. They actually wrote this stuff. There's no logic here, having so many video packages set up on cue because you assumed or had an idea that your opponent or your feud was gonna have one for you ready. And I was like, oh yeah. Well, we see the two combatants already in the ring. The New Day taking on Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. Pretty basic stuff here. But at the end, Kingston hits Sami Zayn with a Trouble in Paradise to get the win. And it was obvious that the referees were stalling, raising Kingston's hand because running back in the crowd was Ziggler, delivering a super kick to the champion and one for Xavier Woods as he was attempting to help his partner. So, yeah, like Ziggler missed his cue there. You know something is up when they're holding on a close-up shot of the winner of the match and the referee's basically chasing him around the ring. Hey, you won. Let me raise your hand. Oh, where's Ziggler? Where the hell was Ziggler? We hear from Shane McMahon, not wearing his shirt backwards this time, saying to Roman Reigns that anything he can do better, and he will prove it at Super Showdown. We get our first ever a moment of bliss on Smackdown, as Alexa Bliss's host was SmackDown Women's Champion Bayley. As this becomes more about Alexa Bliss rather than Bayley, as Alexa was waiting for her coffee to be delivered. Every time Alexa was trying to speak, Bliss would just cut her off and say, yeah, that sounds important, but just give me a minute. Coffee man was running late. One point delivered coffee, but wasn't good enough for her. Go get me a new one. And finally, with the coffee was just right, and wanted the coffee bringer put it in her thermostat and to bring it back. So, as Bayley was not able to speak because of Alexa's constant avoiding here, Bayley slaps the coffee out of her hand, and not approved by her actions, Alexa suggests that maybe someone else should be women's champion, and out comes Carmella. So Carmella and Alexa exchange a few words, but not before Charlotte Flair once again graces us with her presence. I guess she was taking a day off from salsa lessons here. And yes, she comes out to tell the rest of the world that Shane McMahon just informed her to tell us, of course, no authority figures, but to have a triple threat match between Carmella, Alexa, and Charlotte, and the winner will be the new number one contender for Bayley's title for Stomping Grounds, which is in 2 weeks, folks. The match will take place a little bit later on, but we see Carmella backstage and runs into Truth, explaining how crazy the 24/7 title is being defended anywhere, anytime, and apparently used Carmella's phone to reach out to Shane to try to ease up on the rules a little bit. And Shane does call back Carmella, not realizing that Truth used her phone, and passes up the phone to Truth and says, okay, for your next in-ring match, I'll waive the rules again, but you better hurry now because your opponent is heading to the ring. And Truth handed the phone back to Carmella and rushed towards the ring himself. Carmella was a little bit concerned, hoping that because Truth used her phone to reach out to Shane, that this will not affect her championship opportunity later on. So we find out it's Elias in the ring, and as he's prepping up his guitar, members of the SmackDown roster head down, but the majority of who we see here are from Raw. This turned into a lumberjack match. And the lumberjacks, the majority were from Raw, maybe a handful of SmackDown guys, including Matt Hardy. So, you know what? Yeah, fuck the wild card and fuck the draft. So here comes R-Truth. The match gets underway, but gets immediately tossed out of the ring, gets beaten down by a few lumberjacks. Back into the ring, delivers a running high knee, Elias does, rolls up Truth, and wins the 24/7 title. Now, because the match is over, the rules that were waived by Shane are now back in play. And the other lumberjacks, they jump on the apron, and they all attack Elias. And Elias pulls the old being caught in a pile of guys. He slips out between the legs, essentially underneath the bottom rope, down to the arena floor. And he tries to crawl away, only to turn the corner and runs into R-Truth. So Elias heads back the opposite direction, heads underneath the ring, followed by Truth, followed by the referee. And we don't see any of this. And there's a brawl in the ring, a battle royale, if you will, with the rest of the members. And we hear a 3 count. And then the bell rings again. R-Truth's music's playing, and apparently he won back the title from Elias underneath the ring. But again, we did not see any of this. Okay? So rather than wait, we saw what happened after SmackDown went off the air. Earlier, there were a few times where someone lifted up the ring skirt, and you saw this bright light coming from underneath there. And it turns out that was a cameraman. And the cameraman was underneath there for this very set portion of the show. And it was very strange, too, because if you watch the video, the only thing that's missing is the arena noise. So unless underneath the ring is now soundproof, we don't hear the arena noise. Or matter of fact, there was a battle royal happening right on top of them in the ring. You don't hear any stomping. You don't hear the ring bouncing, anything. So what we saw could have been pre-recorded earlier in the day. But anyway, we see Elias slide in. We see R-Truth and then the referee. Truth delivers a right hand and smashes Elias' head onto a steel chair that was folded up nice and conveniently right there. Rolls over Elias, gets the pin, and wins the title back. And on cue, he rolls out. And then the chase was back on again as Truth left through the crowd. We once again hear from Aleister Black reminding us that he's still here and that he's waiting to fight someone. Meanwhile, Shane McMahon heads to the ring along with the Revival. He taunts Roman Reigns, also replays the Monday Night Raw assault. This brings out Roman Reigns, and the Revival try to cut off Roman Reigns in the path, delivering two separate Superman punches to each member of the tag team. And Shane is all alone in the ring. But we know better because from behind came Drew McIntyre delivering a Claymore kick to Roman Reigns in the back of the head. And it's another copy and paste here of what happened on Raw. Shane delivers another spear to Roman again. And all heels stand tall in the ring. So nothing special. This all because Roman Reigns Superman punched Vince McMahon a couple of months ago now. So it was a battle of the blondes. Charlotte versus Alexa versus Carmella in a triple threat match where the winner gets a title shot against Bayley at Stomping Grounds, their new pay-per-view in a couple of weeks. Alexa, assumingly medically cleared, and it's interesting so because of the outcome here. And she takes some semi-bumps in and out of the ring, then immediately gets tossed out by either Charlotte or Carmella as the match goes on, as she spent more time out of the ring than she did inside. And at one point, Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville caused a distraction for Carmella. The distraction allowed Charlotte to slap on the figure 8 on Carmella. And in the background, you see Alexa climbing to the top rope, delivering a twist of bliss onto Charlotte, breaking up the figure 8. And of course, because there is no disqualifications in triple threats, Fire and Ice outside the ring decide to interfere, pulling out Carmella by the ankles, causing yet another distraction. And Alexa Bliss took this opportunity, delivering a DDT, and got the win. So Raw's Alexa Bliss will take on SmackDown Women's Champion Bayley in 2 weeks for the title. Yeah, I mean, makes things interesting because of the brand separations or differentials or whatever. But more so, is Carmella clear? I'm sorry if I'm dwelling on this, but for the sake of argument, if she isn't, why go this direction, or it's just something for her to do because they have no faith in no one else right now as far as the women's divisions go. Nothing against Alexa, but I just hope that she really is truly confirmed, cleared medically to be in the ring. We are given no update on Seth Rollins other than he'll be determined to be at Super Showdown to defend the title against Baron Corbin, and if so, Brock Lesnar. We are once again promised an interview with Lars Sullivan, and he finally speaks on the main roster, saying that he's been described his entire life as a freak. And, for someone who supposedly had an anxiety attack a few months ago, delaying his debut on the main roster, he looked pretty comfortable here and promises to break apart the Lucha House Party at Super Showdown. Zelina Vega and Andrade make their way to the ring, getting set to go one-on-one with Apollo Crews, but the match never gets underway as Andrade attacks Crews before the bell rang, delivering a hammerlock DDT, and out comes human Finn Balor to save the day. They get into a brawl, but at one point the man is in the corner, that being Finn Balor, gets distracted by Zelina Vega grabbing onto his ankle, and this allows Andrade to deliver another hammerlock DDT to the Intercontinental Champion, leaving him laying in the ring. So now the time has come for the first ever appearance of Goldberg on SmackDown to respond to the Undertaker's comments before they were cut off on live TV. So you don't want the family man. You want the old ass-kicking Goldberg. Well, you're going to get it, Undertaker, because you're next to rest in peace, which I thought was a nice combo of the two phrases said by Goldberg and in a very passionate manner. The lights go out. Then they come back on, and we see Taker in the ring, and they go face to face, literally go nose to nose. Lights go out again. Taker is gone. Goldberg smickers like, yeah, that's his thing. That's what he does. And I believe this was their first ever not first ever, I should say. The first times that they were together in a ring, Goldberg and The Undertaker, since the Royal Rumble in San Antonio. And they have 5 minutes to the show left here. So making up for the night before, making sure this overrun doesn't happen again, because USA is just not going to give them no more than 30 seconds, I believe, maybe 60 seconds, but even that's pushing it now. So they decide to run down the entire card for tonight's Super Showdown. And I believe earlier I might have mistakenly said that there was no mention on SmackDown, but going through my notes here, yes, apparently during the SmackDown ending, they did mention of these 50-man battle royal. But even at that point, we had no clue of who the participants are. And now it's not even mentioned on their website. So again, I'm not sure. I don't know what the fate of the 50-man battle royal. It could be some oversight that they just didn't include it after adding the Usos tag team match. So we'll see. We'll see. As a matter of fact, for my timestamp, in about 3 hours from now, as Super Showdown will get underway, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. A quick rundown of the other shows of the week. On main event, EC3 defeated No Way Jose, and Natalya teamed up with Dana Brooke, defeating Tamina Snuka and Sarah Logan. 205 Live saw Drew McIntyre go over Akira Tozawa by pinfall after a Argentinian neckbreaker, and Orny Lorcan defeats Aria Darari by pinfall after a flash pin. On NXT this week, pre-taped during the NXT 25 pay-per-view, Keith Lee defeated some guy as this guy got a near fall after hitting a Uranagi slam, but Lee fired back up and hits a series of strikes followed by a pounce and got the win after the limit breaker. Mia Yim defeated Bianca Belair. Belair was tying up her hair and goes for a powerbomb, but Yim reverses into a guillotine. Belair counters by tossing away Mia Yim, and Yim goes up to the second rope. Belair cuts her off, and to another counter, Yim hits her with Protect Your Neck for the win, and I believe this might have been Bianca Belair's first loss one-on-one on NXT. Speaking of NXT, a bit of an update on Road Dogg. According to the Wrestling Observer, Road Dogg is now working as a coach for Triple H in NXT in their teaching classes over at the Performance Center, and is notably not working on the brand's creative team yet. That may change later, although there are some expectations of him moving into that spot eventually. In an interview with the Straits Time, Shinsuke Nakamura had some words about where he sees himself with his wrestling career in the future. And Nakamura recognized that he is getting up there in age and doesn't want to quit in-ring competition anytime soon, saying, "I want to wrestle at least 5 more years. I'm 39 now." Baseball player Ichiro Suzuki retired at 45. And he was such an influence for my Japanese sportsmen, especially those who lived in other countries. And so I need to wrestle until I'm 45 years old. Interesting that he didn't mention anything about still being with the WWE or returning to Japan to make his official retirement. Personally, if it was me setting this, it's a big deal setting a goal ahead of time. Even 45 is still young, but someone might argue that, or maybe more than someone might argue that the age discrimination and who can tell anyone that they're too old to be physically involved, such as wrestling or MMA or any kind of sport that demands a very high volume of athleticism. And if it was up to me and I was Shinsuke, for the sake of argument, if I'm still with the WWE at that time, I would make a big argument about, hey, even if it's not WrestleMania, then have at least one of your other big name pay-per-views held in Japan somehow, or do something like a send-off like they did with Dean Ambrose, the final stand of the Shield, from Japan, making a retirement send-off or a final match for Shinsuke to take place in WWE. Personally, I would love to see Shinsuke return home under New Japan Pro Wrestling, but that's just me. We heard last week that AJ Styles decided to sign his final pro wrestling contract, and that was with the WWE. Don't know if the current one is his last one or if there'll be an extension, or who knows what will happen, but that's the plan moving forward with AJ. But for Shinsuke, well, the next 5 years are hoping to be very interesting, and that we can see a lot more of him on TV at least. According to SureDog.com, former UFC welterweight and middleweight champion George St. Pierre announced his retirement from MMA earlier in the year. However, he shared an interesting inside story. It doesn't appear that he'll be going to pro wrestling, which is a good thing, by the way. According to St. Pierre, the WWE officials approached him at the ESPN Sports Awards and asked if he would be interesting to wrestle for them. St. Pierre told TVA Sports that while he couldn't mind doing a one-off event in order to see what it's like, he is happy with retirement and does not want a full-time deal with the WWE. He said that no negotiations are currently underway, but the WWE has his agent's information if they choose to change their minds. On the Road to Double or Nothing epilogue released this week, Awesome Kong shared her thoughts about returning to pro wrestling with AEW's Double or Nothing, saying there are no words for that moment. That moment coming out and hearing that crowd roar and the stadium, the arena shake to the point where I was nervous losing my footing on the ramp. There are now words. I seriously had to shove my personnel aside because that chick cries at everything. And my calm personality had to take the wheel. It's that there of you cannot that I think has given AEW that fire. that kinetic energy to prove the world wrong. And they have. There is something starting here right now. It's in the air. People feel it backstage, on stage, in the stands, in the seats, in the lines, in the crowds, in the bars, at home. Something is starting. It's a revolution, and I'm on board. And I can't agree with her anymore as far as AEW's starting point. There's a few kinks here and there to fix, but it's still very, very early in their existence, so we should see where this goes. And speaking of AEW, their TV deal update, as reported by the Wrestling Observer, it's looking like AEW won't be airing on Tuesdays after all. Despite the Tuesday night Dynamite trademark, it appears that AEW will instead air on Wednesday. The decision is yet to be finalized, but TNT is said to be, quote, leaning strongly towards it. Additionally, on Sunday night's Main Event's Twitter account, they're reporting that the company is in talks with Sports Network to air in Canada. It's the ESPN equivalent to the United States. It's so huge of a big deal if the two sides come to terms. Again, working out the kinks here, so it's going to be a while. But one thing is official, as AEW confirmed that the first ever World Championship match will take place as Adam Hangman Page takes on Chris Jericho at the all-out inaugural AEW World Title pay-per-view on August 31st from Chicago, Illinois at the Sears Center, and tickets go on sale next week on June 14th. I usually don't get political on my show here, but one of the 2020 Democratic presidential candidates of Andrew Yang took to Twitter this week to show his loyalty to wrestling and said, Yang Gang. If his Yang Gang were a wrestling promotion, there would definitely be AEW. There is some speculation that Andrew means that his statement, but many on his Twitter page think he's referring to the underdog promotion facing a juggernaut, and the juggernaut being described as the WWE. So, good for him. The Jon Moxley podcast tour continues as he shares more and more stories about what led up to his departure from the WWE where he used to be known as Dean Ambrose. While talking to the Pro Wrestling Torch, Moxley discussed his issues with Vince McMahon, says that while he used to be a genius, McMahon, he's not out of touch. In the 80s, he was a genius. And when he created Hulkamania and took all over the territories and foresaw the cable television and all that, he was a genius. In 2019, I don't think he knows what the fuck is going on. These are the words of Jon Moxley. He'll go on to say, Vince needs to step aside and let someone else do that he can't figure out. The logical replacement, of course, would be Triple H, who's been grooming for that role for some time. At least that's what everyone believes. But Moxley says, when Vince isn't there, Hunter, the guy you defer to, he's got good ideas. His ideas are his ideas, but he's a lot more cerebral. He's not a super open collaborator. I think he would be more open to giving people more freedom, but he's smart and he sees things his way. So if he sees you doing something and he envisions it a better way, a lot more times you're like, oh, that's even cooler. So I've read and seen a lot of interviews where Triple H may chime in like, hey, pal, that sounds great, but how about you try it this way? And turns out, yeah, that was a better idea. You know, if it happens, it happens. About Triple H taking over, and there would have to be a lot of changes. Basically, all of Vince McMahon's guys, his henchmen, let's call it what it is, they all got to go. Again, I don't get political here. I rather not. but it's almost as if you're exchanging the commander-in-chief. Doesn't always happen, but usually when he goes, when his terms are up, a handful of people go with him because that was a deal made there as well. I'm working for you in your office while you're here. Oh, you're leaving? Your term is up? No, I got to go find something else. So when it's time for McMahon to go, take everyone with you, including Kevin Dunn. Please, I'm tired of that epileptic seizure, zooming in and out bullshit that we see every week on Raw and SmackDown. I know a lot of people have compared Jon Moxley's recent ranting, if you will, or letting out frustration post-WWE career throughout many podcasts. Talk is Jericho. I'm pretty sure he'll eventually, if he wants, jump on the Stone Cold podcast. That should be interesting. And compare it to the CM Punk situation. Now, first off, there are a lot of differences, especially what led up to at least Punk leaving versus how the former Dean Ambrose left. Punk left because of injuries. Company didn't care about it, and it's like, all right, just pay me what you owe me, and I'm done. I'm gone. Even after being sued by the WWE for defamation, Punk still won, and they settled out of court. He got everything he wanted and he asked for, including royalties, including back pay, and even after refusing to sign basically a document saying that neither side can talk shit about the other. It's like, no, I'm not signing that. You know, you're trying to censor me now, and he still got everything he wanted out of the suit. Of course, publicly, WWE has been taking all the shots at Punk. Everyone agrees that this whole Shane McMahon shtick now with the best in the world is another shot at him. But, you know, Punk is doing Punk things. Still, last I heard, he's still writing for Marvel Comics. Still wants a shot in MMA, maybe not with UFC, but that's still his passion. He's recently mocked or trolled wrestling fans online about signing with AEW, and it wasn't him. So, you know, Punk is Punk. We would have seen or heard something already, even at the slightest interest of coming back to wrestling. And yes, he's done a few independent run-ins here and there, which is fine. But if you're not okay with that, then you might as well just give up on the hope that Punk one day, Mr. Phil Brooks, will one day change his mind and sign with anyone. Whatever he does for income now, besides the Marvel comic book writing and the MMA fights and all that, I don't hear him complaining. His wife, AJ, she's out there doing book tours and interviews and keeping awareness for bipolar. So a lot of positive is coming out of this. And I never met the man before. I would love to. I don't think he'll make plans to make public appearances like a not Comic-Con, but specifically these wrestling events where he and other wrestlers from past and present are in the same room or the same venue to greet the fans. If he does, it'll more than likely be very private. But I'm hoping to see CM Punk at least one time, if it's a one-off, personally, a one-off, to see Punk in the ring one last time. But that's just me. Bit of an update on Sasha Banks, as she and the WWE looks like might have a upswing. According to the Wrestling Observer, Sasha and Vince McMahon have met back on May 23rd. And it was noted that things are said to be better between Banks and the company. And while nothing is official, she could return to TV sometime this summer. The meeting is worth noting because PWInsider.com has reported Banks was in New York that day during a WWE-related project, possibly the next 2K video game, as Sasha has gone from WWE has been gone from WWE TV since losing the Women's Tag Team Championships to the Iconics at WrestleMania. And despite that, there's been, for lack of a better term, cryptic messages from Sasha Banks on her social media pages, her accounts, especially on Twitter and Instagram. She found Mercedes. What this means for her future remains to be seen. And as mentioned, she did have that meeting with Vince, and it's been said that a WWE return is very likely. But based on this finding Mercedes, that she found herself and promises never to lose it again. She was seen in what appeared to be a two-piece bikini. I obviously don't wear these clothing, so I wouldn't know what to call them. But she was out in a park somewhere next to a tree, and it looks like it was a professional photographer who took this picture, and looked amazing. Sasha did, and she's there discussing that she found Mercedes and never lose it again. An update on Nia Jax after receiving double knee surgeries, that she's doing really well. Unfortunately, did not provide a return date as she's still attending physical therapy and rehab, but is in good spirits. Some sad news for The Big Show, as it was announced by Variety earlier this week that the Sci-Fi Channel original series, Happy, has been canceled by the network. The Big Show was going to be a featured recurring role character as a prisoner. Producers at Universal Content Productions are currently shopping around for a new home for the program. And it's I'm not sure how many have heard by now. Also this week, the streaming service DC Universe, they had last week the Swamp Thing series debut. And not even a week later, about a week later, the series has been canceled after one season. I mean, we've heard shows in the 80s and the 90s being canceled just a few episodes into their very first season, and usually because lack of interest or ratings, and you're done. Some shows who have been renewed for new seasons and beyond probably should never gotten it, but they did. But as far as the Swamp Thing goes, I mean, I haven't seen it yet. I don't know exactly what caused them to cancel, which doesn't make any sense. In the DC Universe streaming services, they're their own boss. They do their own shows. In this case, being live action. Sometimes people who are in charge shouldn't be in charge, but it's a streaming service. You're not competing with anybody. No one else is going to take the Swamp Thing concept and make it their own. Not Netflix, not Hulu, not anyone. And what bums me out is that all those people now are out of jobs. At least working on Swamp Thing. I mean, I'm not saying that they can't work on other projects somewhere else in relation to the DC Universe, but that really sucks. But back to Big Show here. It wasn't shared how much or how many episodes were completed, but the idea was that the show Happy was being shopped around, and Sci-Fi looked like the place to debut it, at least according to the Universal Content Productions. But basically saying no thank you, and hopefully a show like this can be picked up by a streaming service so it can find somewhere to land their feet and have people watch it and maybe catch some interest and renew it for a second season. Sami Zayn announced that he will once again partner up with the Syrian American Medical Society to launch a mobile clinic in Syria that will bring medical aid to the people in desperate need. Unfortunately, there have been many attacks recently in the northwestern portion of Syria, especially due to the citizens and medical facilities that are being targeted. that Zayn is hoping to help those in need. And the fundraiser will launch, matter of fact, later on today at 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, around the same time where Super Showdown kicks off. Speaking of Super Showdown, there was a late story that broke, I believe, last night. At least that's when I first saw it, according to the Wrestling Observer Radio with Brian Alvarez, that Alexa Bliss and Natalya are both officially in Parts Unknown. Alvarez stated that both are, quote, ready to go for a potential match for a Super Showdown later on today. But it's currently unknown in WWE as to if the match will take place at all. It was reported also this week by PW Insider that Natalya was indeed making a flight to Parts Unknown, and that the Pro Wrestling Sheet later reported that Alexa Bliss was flown in as well, hoping that there will be a women's wrestling match to take place during the pay-per-view. But WWE still stands by Parts Unknown's discretion, so we shall see, as Renee Young was the first female talent, if you will, from WWE to debut during their last show in Parts Unknown. Obviously had to follow protocol when it came to fashion choices, and did her job. But now we're talking about a match here. Now, I'm not going to claim to be a genius and to know it all as far as what happens in that part of the world when it comes to what women can and cannot do. But based under the impressions of last year's show, where such a fuss was created after, quote, accidentally showing a video package of their upcoming pay-per-view that involved women in their wrestling attires, showing off more skin that they need to, and they got in trouble for it. Now, there is a possibility that if a women's match were to occur, we're looking at Natalya and Alexa Bliss to probably be in a full bodysuit of some sort. But even then, I don't think it will be a bodysuit that's skin tight. So maybe a hoodie and sweats will be in order. They can't wear makeup. Not even sure how it will go to when it comes to jewelry. Obviously, they probably more than likely can't wear those in the ring. And I don't know. But it will be interesting, to say the least, because WWE has, for the past few years, has been all about the first time ever, for the first time, the first ever this and that, involving the women. But again, we shall see later on. Matter of fact, in a couple hours from now, and I'll bring that news to you next week on the JM Report. Eli Drake has officially announced himself as a free agent, saying after 4 years with Impact Wrestling, some ups, some downs, I would like to thank them for all the overall great experience. Through those years, I've had the fortune to carry 3 different championship belts, having my own talk show, Fact of Life, and was always given the trust to craft my promos virtually from day one. I appreciate the chance that was taken on me and the trust I was given, as well as the friends and the experience I gained along the way. I wish Impact Wrestling nothing but continued success and growth going forward. Today, I am officially a free agent. Now, Drake was originally set to have his contract expire back on May 31st, but it was terminated on April 7th by Impact. It was later reported that several issues led to the company firing Drake, including the public remarks he made about his refusal to work an intergender match with Tessa Blanchard. Several have confirmed that with the settlement, Drake is now clear to sign anywhere he chooses, and one executive from Impact was cited saying, "We are happy to have the issue resolved, and we wish Eli Drake well going forward." Drake is now taking independent bookings and is set to appear at next weekend's episode of Championship Wrestling from Hollywood on Father's Day. It was previously advertised that Drake will face off against TV champion Scorpio Sky and Eric Watts in a triple threat match. I could see Eli Drake in the NXT. I mean, he'll have a great fit there. He's familiar with a lot of those talents that's there now. And time will, obviously, he still has booking commitments elsewhere. And that maybe there'll be some interest generated from WWE, but we'll see. Apparently, speaking of NXT, according to PW Insider, 5 NXT superstars have had their names changed. So rather than having their last names dropped, they had entirely new names and new identities set up. I mean, same characters, but basically going by different names. So, for example, Trevor Lee is now known as Cameron Grimes. Other changes include Luke Menez is now known as Ridge Holland. Eric Bugenhagen is now known as Rick Buguez. Jesse Alaban now goes with Jesse with an I, but her new full name will be Jesse Kamea. And Adrian Jaud is now known as Arturo Ruas. I know it's pronounced Arturo. But, wow. Curious to see what exactly led to these name changes. I mean, well, now that I said that, I realized one comes to mind. Probably because they weren't a WWE creation, these particular names. And now that they are, WWE can now own their intellectual properties. So, smart move, I guess. But on a lighter note, Jon Moxley, mentioned him earlier, he has won the IWGP United States Championship in his debut in New Japan, defeating Juice Robinson in a great hard-hitting match that lasted over half an hour during the finals of the Best of the Super Juniors tournament. Moxley was victorious after hitting his new finisher, Death Rider, which is basically very similar to his previous Dirty Deeds, except he will lift his opponent much higher with a double arm and deliver a DDT after Robinson kicked out of a regular DDT. And now your new United States champion from New Japan is Jon Moxley. Speaking of New Japan, they have announced their full card for this Sunday's Domain event. Moxley will take on Shota Unimo. Kojima will take on Takahashi. Jushin Thunder Liger and Yoshihashi versus Suzuki Gun of Zack Sabre Jr. and Suzuki. Juice Robinson will team up with Taguchi and Tanahashi, taking on Bullet Club, Jay White, Chase Owens, and Ishimori. I apologize if I am mispronouncing these names. For the Never Openweight Championship, Tai Chi will take on Tomohiro Ishii. For the IWGP Tag Team Championships, the Guerrillas of Destiny will take on Evo and Sonata. For the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship, Dragon Lee will take on Will Ospreay. For the Intercontinental Championship, Kota Ibushi will take on Naito. For the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, Okada defends against Chris Jericho. And I'll end with this, and unfortunately it's sad news, as most of you might know. Atsushi Aoki, again, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing these names. He passed away tragically this week after crashing his motorcycle in a tunnel in Tokyo. He was only 41 years old and was the current World Junior Heavyweight Champion. This was his fourth reign with the title. He worked for All Japan Pro Wrestling as a wrestler then became the president of talent relations and the head trainer of their dojo. The wrestling world was stunned, and many chimed in on social media. He also had a run with the AAA World Tag Team Champions and was the Wrestling Observer's Rookie of the Year back in 2006. I would like to offer my prayers and condolences to his family, his colleagues, co-workers, and friends from around the world. Too young, too soon. And then may he rest in peace. Thank you for joining me here on the JM Report. I will be back next week with the results of Super Showdown and, of course, the rest of the news that takes place during the week between now and then. If you like what you heard, please hit that like button and subscribe to the Good Old JM channel. You can follow me throughout social media as listed in the subscription. So everyone, behave, be good. It's Good Old JM. Until next time.
Beautiful world could take my